Have you ever found yourself in an argument that seems to come out of nowhere? Everything is peaceful. You're enjoying a good time. And then, out of nowhere, you are suddenly attacked. But this is no ordinary attack. This is an assault on your character, your family, your deepest values. We're going to talk about a manipulation tactic that people with narcissistic personality disorders will use, and it is called baiting. We are going to examine how baiting works and why it is so devastatingly effective. I'm Grace. I am not a psychologist. I'm just a woman who had a 6-year relationship with someone who had narcissistic personality disorder. And at the end of that relationship, I was destroyed psychologically, emotionally, and physically. I had to crawl my way back to physical and emotional health. How do you do that? It is a process, but you start by addressing the tactics, the playbook that they use on you. This education is where the healing process begins. When we begin to identify the abusive tactics, we can start to protect ourselves from the manipulation. But first, we've got to understand it. So what is baiting? Think of a skilled angler. They don't just throw any bait into the water and hope for the best. No, they study their target. They learn what that fish is drawn to. And then they present the perfect lure at just the right moment. Narcissistic baiting works exactly the same way. In the very beginning of the relationship, during the love bombing phase, the narcissist isn't just wooing you. They're conducting reconnaissance. They listen to you with remarkable intensity as you share your stories, mirroring your excitement over dreams and passions. But this intimacy is a facade. It's actually a calculated gathering of intelligence. Every vulnerable moment that you share, every fear or insecurity that you reveal, every relationship that you cherish, it's all being stored away in their mind as ammunition for future attacks. So let me share how this played out in my own experience. During the early days of our relationship, Neil seemed to understand and admire the bond that I had with my son. He would ask thoughtful questions and appeared to appreciate the relationship that I had with my son. But what I didn't realize was that he was mapping my emotional landscape. He learned that attacking my son was the fastest way to get a reaction out of me. And as the baiting progressed, it wasn't just my son that he would target. It was deep personal things that I had shared with him. It was my beliefs and my character and all the things that normal people would feel a right to defend. At times, this baiting seemed to come from nowhere. I remember one of the first times this occurred. We were having a very nice evening, preparing a lovely meal. Neil had opened a bottle of wine, and we were playing our favorite music. And then, without warning, Neil started in on attacking my son. I tried to brush it off, just to keep the peace, but he persisted. Each comment grew more aggressive, more personal. He said a lot of mean and vile things. Before I knew it, I was defending my son, trying to make Neil see reason, trying to explain why his accusations were unfair. And that's exactly what he wanted. While I became more passionate, more emotional in my defense, he appeared calmer and more rational. And by the end of the night, I was in tears, questioning my own role in the conflict. When I asked him why he was so hell-bent on creating such chaos, that's when he delivered this blow. It takes two to tango. The phrase became a common one of his go-to weapons, suggesting that my desperate attempts to defend what I loved made me an equal participant in the chaos that I never wanted to create. This wasn't a dance between two willing partners. This was one person desperately trying to avoid conflict while the other insisted on creating it. Baiting has devastating effects on the person who is unwillingly dragged into this craziness because it targets what matters most to you. When someone attacks your loved ones, your values, every instinct screams at you to defend, and that is what they're looking for. Narcissists feed on intense emotions, both positive and negative. Your passionate defense gives them exactly what they crave. This is their supply. But beyond the supply, they're also using baiting to satisfy their ego. Because when you take the bait, now they can look at you and call you emotionally unbalanced and crazy, taking the onus off of them and projecting onto you and preserving their fragile ego. These baiting episodes would also arise after Neil had gone into one of his narcissistic rages. He knew this was not a good look for himself, so he would bait me into reacting. And the minute I would, his ego was restored because in his mind, I was now the one with the problem, regardless of the fact that I was simply defending myself. After repeatedly being told that your natural reactions are signs that you are unstable, you begin to question your own emotional responses. This is a systematic strategy of manipulation. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that it took me a long time to understand what was happening, because the various forms of manipulation put you in a fog. Baiting works out really well for the narcissist because we feel like we are disrespecting ourselves when we don't defend. And even worse, the effects don't end when the argument stops. You lie awake at night, replaying it, wondering what you did wrong, how you could have handled it better. This rumination becomes another form of torture. We also suffer the injury of beating ourselves up for having shared our vulnerabilities and family relationships with them to begin with. Once I recognized baiting for what it was, I learned about the gray rock technique, which is a tool to be used in an existing relationship when you cannot leave. This means that you become uninterested, unresponsive, and unmovable, like a gray rock in the face of their baiting. In other words, when you go gray rock, you do not take the bait. And this is not easy to do because it's natural to want to defend ourselves, especially when the attacks are so personal and are directed at your core values and the people you hold dear. These episodes beat you down in so many ways. And cut by small cut, they chip away at your core as they gradually separate you from your support network as you become too exhausted to maintain other relationships, especially the ones that are being attacked. This is really sad to say, but as much as I love my son, as much as I would want to be with him, the stress that Neil placed on me when my son wanted to visit was excruciating. It becomes important to do what you can to shield yourself from assault of the dark soul. Using the gray rock technique doesn't mean suppressing your emotions and denying your truth. It means choosing when and where to express them safely. Instead of taking the bait, you might say, I'm not going to discuss this right now. Or, we can talk about this when we're both calm. Or simple redirect. Did you see the weather forecast for tomorrow? The goal is to starve the narcissist of the emotional reaction that they crave while protecting your own energy and sanity. If you're watching this and you recognize these patterns in your own life, I want you to know your reactions to systematic emotional abuse are not evidence of your instability. No, they're evidence of your humanity. The fact that you defend what you love, that you fight for your values, that you become emotional when something precious to you is attacked, these are beautiful qualities. The problem isn't your capacity for love and protection. The problem is the person who would weaponize these beautiful qualities against you. Knowledge is power, and understanding these patterns is the first step towards protecting yourself. Remember, you deserve relationships that lift you up, not tear you down. You deserve to express your emotions without being told that you're insane. And you deserve peace in your own home. But with a narcissist, it becomes impossible. All you can really do is avoid taking the bait at all costs. Do not allow them to drag you into their twisted tango. So, have you experienced baiting? What helped you recognize the pattern? Let's support each other on this journey. Understanding brings us closer to freedom and healing. I know it can be very hard to find peace, but when we find it, we can begin to live more joyful lives.